Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. Good to see you. And I know this has been a super busy September. I have been meeting with about 9 or 10 different boards now or groups for grade 3 and hearing very much the same things. And I'm sure you're feeling the same, is that they kind of thought September flew by and they didn't have the time to do the things they wanted to because there was a lot of testing going on. And so to that end, a lot of the groups weren't necessarily where they had hoped they would be when we started off in our sort of June or late August talk about what our targets and goals were going to be for September, October. And no worries, because remember that we have set up our year at a glance to be a plan in which we would unpack things small and in small chunks, deliberately so that you would have time to also go back and revisit the things that they did not land at your doorstep with from grade 2. So there is a little bit of bridging that had to happen. And so the year at a glance built the bridging into it so that we were ready to sort of meet that number of 100,000 in June. There is absolutely no rush to even consider and worry about that number up front. Remember, at any time, just unmute yourself, because especially today, I'm just working on one screen. I'm at the CARC office. So just unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment, or there's anything that you'd like to know. And as always, feel free just to email me if you have any questions as we go along. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to begin with our acknowledgement. And we acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge, oops, I just lost my screen there. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. So today's session, as I mentioned, I would like to talk a little bit about assessment, because also noticing, and some teachers are saying, I'm doing a ton of concepts, like just covering resources over and over and over again, but I haven't really done a ton of assessment yet, not really sure what that should look like. And so I want to spend a little bit of time unpacking, again, just looking at our months that we were targeting. This session was to look specifically at November, December. So we are going to oversee November and December as far as assessment is concerned, but we're actually going to unpack December even more when we meet again at the end of November, because people were also asking for a little bit of time to get more time into the schedule that we have. And that's fine. And remember that you're not even having to follow the year at a glance if you're doing it in a different order. It's just that's what we're going to use for the PDs, so that we can kind of all follow at the same place. Okay, so to that end, what I'd like to do is just start a little bit with some of the conversations that we've had in the past and maybe where we're going to go in the future. And that would be that any of these sessions that we're doing, my hope is that each time you are walking away with at least some of the pieces that you feel more comfortable with. You are at least affirmed that where you're at is reasonable and that you're not an island unto yourself. And even if you are, we are only at the beginning of the year, and grade 3 has significant changes. And albeit we are ready to sort of tackle them in smaller chunks, you may feel that you still have these big outcomes that you have to reach. And there is, as I said at the beginning, no rush to get there. So I hope you have the field, you have the skill set and the resources to keep you going forward. What I would like to do is spend a little bit of time looking at this document again. I'm not going through this document and explaining it, but I do want to just look at, this is the color of the math document as it appears in the government website. And remember that we have 3 shades of colors. The dark one at the top, the largest one, is the organizing idea. And I want to spend some time on that one, and well, all 3 of them, but that one in particular, because if we're going to talk about assessment, everybody has to go to that first line at some point. When we are determining what we're going to assess, I need to know what the big rocks are. And we used to have documents called essential learner outcomes, big rocks, whatever you called it in your jurisdiction. Teachers were asking, is Alberta Ed going to create some of those? And the answer was no, because they said you already have them. And actually we do. So in this organizing idea, remember it spans multiple grades, and your opening organizing idea spans all the grades, K to 6, all 7 of them are using the same statement. So in it houses the big rocks that we need to pay attention to. How those big rocks, those concepts get unpacked, kind of start to get refined based on the question that you got as a guiding question. But even more so, once we start to look at your learner outcomes, then it starts to say, this is what that means in grade 3. This is what this overarching idea means in grade 4, etc. So the further I go down in color, the more specificity I get regarding my grade. Regardless of whether you are using the year at a glance or not, you would want to make sure that you, in the end, would be finding the same big rocks as anybody who started at the opposite end of the spectrum than you did. We all have to be assessing the same thing, which means we all have to make sure that we're finding exactly the same things. How you teach it and how you unpack it may be a little bit different, and that will depend solely on your teaching style, how you've used resources in the past, whether you're brand new to this, whether you're not brand new to this, all of that plays into it. But in the end, we still have to come away with the same assessment piece. And so that's why I want to spend a little bit of time today looking just at September to December. What are the big rocks that we are working on in these 4 months? And what is it that I should be working on with students to ensure that between January and June, I just continue to enhance some of the pieces that I started in those first 4 months. So that's our first piece. And then we're going to have a look specifically at what it was we said we were targeting. The nice part about the bridging document or our year to glance, remember, as we said, you're just revisiting. You can't get to 100,000 in the beginning, nor should that even be a goal anyway. But that's an end goal. That's a June 30th goal. That's not a goal that we worry about at the front, because kids don't have the background for that. They're not arriving at your doorstep with the knowledge that a grade 2 student who's finished the new curriculum has of 1,000. They're arriving at your doorstep with 100. So they're not going to fast track through into any big numbers, not without a lack of understanding somewhere along the way that we need to make sure that they're strong in. So we're going to revisit that again. Small steps, baby steps, go slow at the beginning to go faster at the end. You've got lots of time. So when I look at this up here and I start to look at what are some of the big rocks that I see, well, I see quantity. Okay, that for sure is a concept. That's a big rock. Quantity goes throughout every grade from kindergarten to grade 6. I see number, although it's plural. I see counting, labeling, comparing, operating. All those are activities. I could actually consider those as parts of how I'm unpacking this big concept. Okay, those are all important pieces for us to consider as we start going through some of these pieces. Other thing that I would like to just go through, see if I can get rid of this box here. And not. Okay, the disadvantage of being on a screen, one screen. Okay, we'll just start with here. So when I look at the top, these 3 are outcomes that come from your curriculum directly. This is not anything that I created as an example, anything like that. This comes directly from there. So when I'm looking at some of these pieces here, I see that I have an outcome. This is your 3rd learner outcome, the 2nd row of understandings, because remember the decimal 2 tells me that there was more than 1 row. The outcome never changes its wording. It's just what's below that will. Multiplication strategies include repeated addition, multiplying in parts, compensation. So just as a quick reminder, when I see the word include in the document that we're looking at, the Alberta Ed document, your curriculum document, your outcomes, any place that it appears with the word include, whatever comes behind that must be taught. So in most cases, teachers are saying, well, I would do that anyway. I mean, this is kind of the things that I would do. And I agree. I totally agree that we would do all of these when we are teaching multiplication strategies. But you might also have some other ones that have worked well for you. You might have some that just have absolutely excelled with students. That doesn't mean because those are the only 3 that are listed and yours isn't, that you don't do it. You must include these 3, but it doesn't say that's where you stop. This is not the only 3 that we teach. So if you have best practices already that are working well for you, you absolutely would include them here. We're not throwing away best practice in any grade at any time. Let's skip down to the 3rd one here. This is your 3.1. So first row, multiplication can be interpreted as various ways according to the context, such as equal groups, an array, and an area. Now, again, most teachers said, well, when I read those, I would do those 3 when I'm teaching how to start the notion of multiplication. And correct, you probably would. Some of you might say, well, I use 2 of those, but I don't use the 3rd one. That's fine too. The word such as means you have discretion as a teacher. You can use the ones that are listed here. You could use completely different ones if that's what it came up to. In most cases, I find the ones that are bulleted with words, most people are saying, well, that's what I do. It's where an example comes in, and sometimes the example is more leaning towards a big city, and you might be teaching in a small town. And so the children might not resonate with that particular example. And so you might just read it and say, oh, well, that's not going to mean anything to my kids. That's okay. Ignore it. Come up with your own. If it's a good example and you want to do that one and another one, feel free, but you have that flexibility with the word such as. And the last one is, when there are words in brackets, remember that those words are words we have to teach the students, but it also means that I might use more user-friendly kinds of language when I'm doing some activities with them. Instead of using the word commutative, commutative, commutative every time I say something, I might just say, remember, the order that we multiply 2 numbers in or 3 numbers in isn't going to matter when I figure out what the product is or the answer is. If I go A times B times C, or if I go B times C times A, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. All the order is irrelative, and that's what the commutative property was about. So using user-friendly, age-appropriate language might be something that you want to consider in certain places. Okay, so at the other pieces that I want to talk about, I don't want to go back to these each time. So we're just bringing this up because this is our second one. Reminder that the competencies are still alive from the 2013 ministerial order. So those 8 are to be addressed every teacher, every grade, every subject, every year. That was the intent in 2013 and remains the intent. So again, it's not one that we just sort of divide up and say, oh, you know, the guys in kindergarten are too little. We're just going to do problem solving. And then we're going to leave critical thinking to grade 1. These are all 8. At an age-appropriate activity, we would introduce all 8 of these to our students in our class every year. And really, we want students to see them every year because we know they're growing every year. They're going to look at them slightly differently as they get older. But moreover, we want them to be able to identify and self-reflect. What are their strengths? Which of these competencies are their strengths? Which ones do they have a passion and a keen interest in? Okay, and they may not even realize they do. So they do need to be exposed to these. They are not graded on the report card. There is a rubric, which some schools just pass forward in the CUME record and they just circle where the student is at the end of the year. However you do it in your school, but they're not meant to be graded, but they are there for every year. As are the literacy and numeracy. We expect to see that literacy is very much in the forefront of our math when we're doing math, as is numeracy in the forefront when we're doing ELAL. Now, some people have said, well, I wouldn't have a clue where to start with some of these. And that's fine, because actually the work has already been done to identify where each of these fit in your curriculum. I will go back to that before we finish today. I'm going to go back and take you to that site. I want you to, first of all, find out that you've got all the login that you need. And secondly, to show you where these can be found so that you're not having to second guess, like, what should I put here? And maybe you don't know what kind of an activity you want to do for a unit on an outcome. You could just read those through and you might get some ideas that, oh, they're focusing on writing for oral language and for research. I never even thought about research. Well, maybe I could pick a competency that has research, like research and managing information, right? So there's ways that I can use that to leverage maybe where I should go or could go with some work that students do. But first, let's just do a little bit of work with the concepts that are found in our curriculum documents. So as I mentioned at the opening, a concept is a big rock. That's essential learner piece. that we used to talk about before. It's found in the organizing idea. That's where the biggest rock is. And how we unpack that is where we go down and we look at what specifically am I supposed to do with my students at my grade. So it has some very distinct pieces to it. And I need to be able to make sure that I know how to find the same one that anybody who's not even my grade partner in another building, another school, another part of the province, we're all looking at the same thing at the same time. So let's use an example of a chair, just to revisit what is a concept, make sure everybody's comfortable and knows how to find it. So a chair is a concept. If you're not sure exactly what a concept is, or hadn't done work with concepts before, think of nouns. Look for the nouns. That's generally 98% of the time a good way to get started. So look for the nouns that you find inside the statement that you're working with, or statements. A chair is something we're all familiar with. We can see it looks different. It has different purposes. When I said it, you pretty much knew. You could picture a chair that's comfortable or one that you don't like right now. But the term chair is timeless. We had chairs 100 years ago, 500 years ago. We'll have chairs 1,000 years from now. Hopefully they may not look the same. They might look very unique. Maybe they even float, but the purpose of sitting on something as a chair will be there. It's universal. You can go anywhere in the world right now, and you may not speak the language of the country that you're in, but if you had their word for chair, it would resonate with them. Everybody knows what a chair is. Again, it doesn't have to look identical. So when you are looking for a concept, that's the first thing you're looking for, is a word, generally a noun, that's timeless and universal. It's not specific to your grade. The minute it becomes specific to a grade, then we're already working our way down to a specific topic as opposed to the broad concept. Now, when I find that concept, I should see it come throughout. Like, I should see it showing up more than once, not just at the top of my page. So let's have a look at my example of chair. If you walked into Leon's right now and you opened the front doors, walked in, you would be bombarded with furniture. You would see couches and beds and chairs and tables and everything else that you can envision right off the bat. You didn't come for all of that though. You came for a chair. So that means you've already screened out the beds, you've already screened out the appliances, you're already narrowing it down to chairs. But even chair is pretty broad still, because I may not know what kind of chair I'm looking for. I could be walking for quite a while. So I've narrowed it down that I'm looking for a dining room chair. So now I can pass the living room furniture. I can pass everything else except go straight to the dining room section, where I'll find the tables and the chairs that associate with a dining room. Much the same thing happens when we're talking about our concepts. Up at the top is your furniture. That's your organizing idea. Your guiding question that would kind of sit in the middle here, which varies from each grade, would be your chair. It's narrowed, but it's still pretty vague. And then I have a more specific idea or specific outcome that becomes my dining room chair. So when I look for these concepts, how I use them, how I actually unpack them for the student will depend on the lens that you look at it with. I can say quantity to all of you that are here today. And just by the nature of the word quantity, some of you will think of numbers, some of you think of a volume, some of you think of people. It's whatever comes to mind. And it's maybe what lens you're thinking of right at that point in time that's influencing what picture comes to mind. So the lens that I put on that day is going to also affect how I look at something, how I'm going to unpack it, and also I need to make sure that I'm also assessing. So for example, if I were to look at the 9 boxes that are on here, and let's just use that word quantity. If I said to you, look at those 9 boxes through the lens of quantity, most of you right now, when you're glancing through these, you're probably zeroing in on what's on the right-hand side of the equal sign. You're looking to see how big the quantities are. Like they go 9, 7, there's a question mark, there's a 15. So it's kind of a range of question mark, don't know, to 15. But if I ask you to take those sets of glasses off and put on a new one and look at all these 9 boxes again, but look at it through the lens of representation, I'm no longer really concerned about what's sitting on the right-hand side. I am looking more at what did that student do to model an addition statement? Like, what is the process that What's the strategy? So that's the lens that I'm looking at will determine really what my focus will become. And that's you every day of teaching. We do that automatically anyway. We just may not label it and talk about it in that terms, but that's exactly what we do when we create a lesson plan. You have a lens on, you create your lesson plan, you know where you want to go with it. So those are kind of the important pieces that we want to address. All right, so let's have a look at this. We have conceptual lenses, we have concepts of content. So here is your second learner outcome, one that we're actually working on. Students apply strategies for addition and subtraction within 1,000. Remember, babies, our goal was very modest. Nail 100. They have to master 100 in every different direction, including money, right? That's our goal, is to use money as our manipulative to get there, because we need that for financial. So the 100 was our goal. And if I can nail 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 is not a big deal. Neither is 1,000. I just really need to be able to understand how 100 operates before I go any further than that. So when I look at this statements here, and I look at what are the concepts of content, I see addition, I see subtraction. Some people might argue strategies, because a strategy is a noun. It's plural in this case, but that's fine. I could say student is a concept. So given that that's the content that I'm looking at right here, I want you to look through these, and you could bring this up on your screen if you want and just use the actual document, but it's 3 and 2 that we're looking at. I'd like you to look at the 3 knowledge, understanding, skills, or processes. And just on a piece of paper, you don't have to throw it in the chat box, you don't have to unmute yourself or anything. Just want you to go through and have a look and write down the words that you believe are concepts, content. Which ones represent concepts of content? And just jot them down. Okay, now you may not get through all of them, but you're going to see, you should be seeing the same words showing up more than once, and that's a good thing. Then you kind of know you're on the right track. So I've highlighted the ones, numbers, objects, numbers, thousands, hundreds, number, placeholder, value, etc. Okay, those are all content concepts. So now what I'd like you to do is have a look at what's left in here, including the top, whichever. Which words represent concepts of skill? So which ones are the concepts of skill that you would identify? Now, one of the important pieces that go along with this is that when I'm doing this content concept and skill concept, remember at the very beginning in the onset when we started the process and unpacking the whole document, we said, don't fall into the trap of turning the knowledge side into a checklist and going check, check, done, done, and then flipping over to the skill side and doing, oh yeah, check, check, done, done, and just saying, I must be done. What's happening over here for the skill concepts, which you now see highlighted in green or blue, they are representative of what has to happen alongside the content words. So in other words, we're embedding them together and evaluating them at the same time. So that being said, when I look at these words, I need to make sure that students, not only I as the teacher, know that they need to be able to represent quantities, the student needs to know that they have to represent quantities. And moreover, the student needs to know, what does represent mean? How many times have you maybe asked a student, here's a question, you wanted a written response, you were hoping for 2 paragraphs, and you got 2 sentences. And so you think, how is this possible? We've got the word explain in there and whatever. So, okay, clearly not all kids like to write. Some of them would just maybe say that that's all I could think of. But there's another side to that too, and is, do the students know what explain means? Or do we assume that they know what explain means? So if we haven't taken the time to teach them that a response that is a response to explain would include the following things, then I might not know and think that I have fully explained my thought in 2 good sentences. So these words are with content, and we have to make sure that the students know what those words are. So what I did is I went through our year at a glance from September to December, and I pulled out all of the words that are showing. Now, I've just used one statement behind them. There might be 4 or 5 times that model shows up, and there'll be another piece. But this comes from our year at a glance from September to December. What are the skill concepts that will be married already to content on the right-hand side that students will be working on since September? And remember what I said, it isn't important for me, just the teacher, to know these. I have to teach these to the students. So I'm going to just give a thought to throw out to you, and that would be, when you're teaching these to me, first of all, don't assume I know any of them. I might know some of them, but don't assume that I really know what it is you're looking for when you say estimate, partition, demonstrate. What's the difference? Like, how do I know? So when I'm teaching those words to the student, initially, it would be better for me to learn what model means outside of the math, so that I'm not trying to rack my brain about, you're teaching me about place value and modeling at the same time. I would like to focus on one thing. So if I knew what modeling already meant, then I can just focus on the math when we get the modeling and the math part in there, and it doesn't muddy the waters. All too often, we usually drag these together hand in hand. And if they got lost in the content part, they for sure didn't even follow this. I mean, I watched it, they did a little bit, but it didn't internalize with them. So think of my example of content or concept when I was working with you today. I gave you an example of a chair. I grabbed something completely devoid of math because that's easy for us to grab and understand. I can assume that all of you resonate with a chair because you're probably sitting on one right now. So if I wanted to, just for example, if I wanted to take identify, and I wanted to teach them to identify, what does identify mean? When we ask you to identify something, what specifically are we asking you to look for? And am I going to have to repeat this? Probably 2 or 3 times. But if we're doing this all along, then by the time sort of January comes, they're going to be pretty versed in these because you just keep revisiting them anyway. So it's not going to be new to them. So bring out your lunch kits or your lunch bags or whatever you have. Let's lay your lunch out on your desk and let's identify what healthy food groups you have in your lunch, right? Or maybe you want to take out the word healthy and just say food groups, right? So identify. So identify means I'm going to look and I'm going to try and name in specific categories what it is that I see in my lunch. And then if I decide that they're healthy or not healthy, however I want to do that. Again, the lunch is something they resonate with. Food they get, it's in front of them. You could even say pencil crayons, take them out. Let's identify, you know, how many dark colors, light colors, just something that's really simple that they've got in front of them that's easy to resonate with. But once I have the term in my head, now I can knock myself out and listen to everything you have me do about the math, and I can put the 2 of them together. Kind of like the explain when you're looking for a sentence. Now, the reason this came to mind was two reasons. One is a lot of teachers were saying, I've got a ton of content I've covered. But secondly, we also had school boards saying, we're struggling with the report cards. We're not going to give our report cards out at the same time that we normally do. We're still kind of trying to figure out how we're going to just report on this one learner outcome. We're going to go to, we have new platforms. So there's all kinds of things happening right now in the province, lots of new platforms being used for reporting. And so in some cases, they're saying we just want to have sort of a way to kind of do a paragraph or a write-up for each student that we can share with the parent, or however you're going to do it at your school. So to ensure that we actually are assessing these, and remember it's ongoing because you're doing 100. Remember the yellow was 100, not 1,000. So it's baby steps. I can take any one of these sentences and I could just put a name in here, you know, John is able to model regrouping by place value for addition, and maybe it's just addition, you take that off, and subtraction 2. So if John is at 50, Mary's at 30, Frank is at 100, I am differentiating already. I am still revisiting every outcome, whether you're at 20, 50, or 100, it doesn't matter. I still have to have you add, I still have to have you skip count, I still have to have all that stuff still happens. It's just the level at which you're doing. Now, would I do every one of these sentences? Probably not in a report that I was doing to parents. Could I group some of these and say that I have a large group of students that are working, let's say between 50 and 80 or whatever number you're on? Sure, you could group them together and just say, you know, that they're successfully showing you or meeting, or however their terminology is, between 50 and 80 for that particular outcome. So to me, this is one way that we can already do what you already do so well in primary, and that is to do those summative write-ups. But it also gives you a way to track how students have progressed over time. Because we are continuously revisiting 100, then we're going to move to 200, then we might go to 500, then we'll go to 1,000. There's no race. The addition and subtraction to 1,000 is the June end of year assessment. So there's nothing to master here in September, October, November, for sure not. Can we introduce and revisit? Absolutely we will. And so this is the kind of thing we said we also would try and bring money in wherever we could, because money would also help us with place value. So let's just revisit again what September, October, November looked like. Our goal, although it says students interpret place value within 100,000. So if I don't understand place value of 100, as in maybe 100 cents, $100, then this might just become nothing more than a bunch of columns where I have tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. Do I have meaning to that though? And that's why we said bridge it first with money, so that they understand what that regrouping, that all those different places that we have in there have a meaning to them. There is no rush. This number is an end of the year number. And let's remember that it says students interpret place value. Like, we're not losing our heads over 100,000 here. You're not adding to 100,000. You're just really looking at how well they understand where those place values come into play when I have a 6-digit number. So that's the interpret part, but that's kind of the extent of that 100,000. So people are panicking about this number, and I always say, just be careful. Your bigger number is 1,000, because that's where all of your operations are centered around. So even here in October, where we have 100 to 1,000, I've even said to some groups now, I think this is like overly ambitious. I would maybe make that 100 to 200, 100 to 500. Like, I just don't think you're ready to jump into 1,000, because I'm not convinced that all of your grade 3 students right now can do a really good job of regrouping 2-digit addition. And if they can, perfect. But I'm pretty sure that not everybody's there. So if they haven't nailed 100, the 100 is a rock. If we've got that, then anything beyond 100 becomes fairly simple. But if I have kind of wobbly feet when it comes to 100, that wobble becomes a drop when I start working to bigger numbers. So this is where you hang your hat and really work on that. And that's why I say, when we look at it, we have N1, N2, N1, N2, N1, N2. Like, we didn't change that, because we said you're going to have to do some bridging and some revisit. So if I'm the student, he can only go to 50. You might be doing place value with me in terms of money. You might be doing place value with me about the digit on it in its place. But really, if I didn't even talk about place value and all I did was learn the money and I worked on addition and subtraction, good for me. I can bring in place value when I really understand the money. Why does money give us that tool? Because it helps us to verify when you bring out a base 10 block, why I'm converting 10 little white things into a rod that you called a rod. Yes, I know I can show you that 10 white little units fit on that, but that doesn't mean I have any sense of why that 10 rod is there. It's just a rod. You called it a rod and it's not a problem. I can accept that. 10 of those give me this plastic thing called a flat. Again, I can show you that there's 100 little squares in there. I can count them. I can put 101 on there. I can put 10 rods in there. I can do all that. But that does not mean I have a connection to what that means. If I go 5 pennies is a nickel, that's tangible. That's something I can have in my pocket. If I see 2 nickels become a dime, I'm again converting. Oh, all right, this is just an equivalent of money. The money gives the context. And this is why we could leverage that approach right now. We have to work to 100 anyway, so why not leverage it to our fullest extent? I could say to students, show me 178 cents. And I mean, if they had 178 pennies, some of them might count out 178 pennies. Some of them might give you different combinations of it. But in the end, if we're really good at it, then I might say to them, in 178 cents, how many hundreds do I have? I have 1. I have 178 cents. I have 100. What is the sevenths? What's 7? What place does 7 hold? 7 is in the tens position. When I say 178 cents, 7 is in the tens position. How many dimes could that be? 7. Great. So we have a bit of a context there. But if I've done that over and over and over again, then when I come back to you and I say, how many tens are there in $178? And you say 7, then you miss the boat because it's not 7. If I say how many tens are in $178, I'm asking you how many $10 bills could you count out to get close to the $178? And the answer would be 17. And then I have to come up with $8 in whatever denomination I want to use. That's the difference between memorizing a column and understanding place value. And we didn't get that in the last 10 years with our base 10 blocks, not for any fault of anybody. And I use them all the time. I love them. But I recognized as years went on that we were losing kids left, right, and center. And I see it even more so when they get into junior high and high school. They haven't got a clue what place value is. They think when you say place value, they think columns and they think these yellow flats, but they don't understand what they did with them. So we have an opportunity now to kind of pick it up and fix it a little bit more. Okay, we also said algebra, which is just below this, would be something that we would just be ongoing, and we would use money again, $20 to $100. Could be as simple as, can you show me $28 on one side, and can you show me $28 in a different way, and do I still have the same amount of money? So different forms of the same number. Money's a great way for us to show that. We will, as we move later on into November, I'm going to talk really deeply about place value in November, because that's what we're going to have to really start moving on then. Assuming everybody's got the money piece in their head really well, and the kids are good with that, then we can start looking at the 6 aspects of place value, and do they get all 6? And if they do, then we can categorically say, yeah, they got this place value thing, they figured it out. In the meantime, we just keep working through money. Patterns, I can use the money as I'm learning the money. Maybe I don't even know the names of them yet, right? I'm grade 3, but I don't know what's a toonie from a loonie. So it doesn't matter. You could put a toonie, a loonie, and a dime on the board and say, can you recreate this pattern that I created? And then we can talk about number patterns and sequences. Like once I know numbers, I can see that maybe I'm going to go from 100 down. I'm going to skip count by 10s down. So I'm going 100, 90, 80, 70. Can you fill in the rest of it? And then they find out it goes down to 10 and 0 if you've already talked about it. And then I'm done. It's a finite sequence. Whereas if I started in the other direction, like skip counted by 10s and I just said keep counting, and they're going to say, when should I stop? I don't know. When should you stop? Well, it'll just keep going. Correct. That's an infinite sequence, right? So we can do that with money. We can do that right off the bat, just keeping it in front of them as much as you can till they're so versed in it that they don't think twice about using other things. Same thing for skip counting. Your grade 3s did not arrive at your door skip counting by 25s and 50s, which is what they're doing in grade 2. So in a perfect world, all the skip counting has happened now in grade 1 and grade 2. Well, will they all know that? No. So when I start getting the toonies out, I can put toonies out and I can skip count by 2s. I can count by 2s the number of coins on my table, and then I can skip count the value that is on my table. 2 different things. How many coins? If I have 8 toonies on my table, I have 8 coins. What's the value? I count up by 2s each time. I have $16. Again, it's just flipping, and every question that we have, we can do that many outcomes all in just one simple layout, 8 toonies. That's really all we would need to do. So again, we looked at in December, we still have the same numbers. We still have N2 being very much part of what we're doing. So we're still doing addition. Again, if you're not at 100 comfortably, then stay there. You can still work on that in January. If you're ready to go on and you're not ready for 1,000, you just really need to make sure that they've nailed 100 and maybe you want to go beyond, then go to 500, go to 300. Just see how they're doing. The kids counting by 100 is easy. The $100 bills, they like that. They love the money because they just love holding it. But that part is easy for them. Again, when we're talking about this multiplication and division, remember now in the new grade 3 curriculum, we're looking at math facts to 10. So 10 by 10, right? So we're going to 100. We're not starting that right off the bat. So we're going to think small. Maybe you just go to 5 times 5 and master that, which is what we used to master. Now we master 10 by 10. If you're doing money or strategies in multiplication, then you might want to be considering just ignoring 5 by 5 and saying, I'm going to do the order of multiplication facts that have been suggested, which is going from 2s to 5s to 10s, or sorry, pardon me, 2s to 10s to 5s. And then I look at some of the square numbers. So those are the pieces that you might want to consider. Again, that's the lens you look at it through and how you want to unpack that. Patterns, again, start it with money. It's something that you said just to put it all year. And so that's pretty much what we did. And it's just sitting there. We also will have time. Time is going to become a big piece in ours. If I'm skip counting by 5 cents, if I'm skip counting by $5, then I can skip count by 5 minutes on a clock. So again, I don't need to tell time to know that I can count 5 lines in between each of the numbers on a clock to know that it's 5 minutes. We'll talk about the unit fractions that go with that later. We'll talk about angles that go with that later. This is not all about do all of this in December. We keep revisiting because the goal is to get to 1,000 for number and all of the clock stuff before the end of the year. So we just keep revisiting. And that's why I said, when you teach me representation, every time you revisit, I'm really doing the same thing over and over. And that's why by end of sort of Christmas, January, they've heard it, been there, done that so many times that they probably already know what's coming, right? And that's good. That's what we want. Kindergarten's doing the same thing to teach their still children. Grade 1, the same thing. Grade 2. Everybody has a few additional or different words, but there'll be lots of commonalities. So next year, you wouldn't have to do this again, right? We would revisit them, but we don't have to start from scratch. So I would encourage you to think about if those are the terms, the concepts of skill and content that are sitting between now and December, what does that look like in your class? What does that sound like? How are you keeping a record? And you probably already have a system, and that's great. If you don't, maybe just give that some thought. We will unpack, like I said, place value again in November. That just gives people a little bit more time with the money and to get maybe soundly to 100 if that's where you're working for. Okay, so what I also wanted to show you was, and just a reminder, that when you are looking at your year at a glance, these bullets that are in here are the understandings that go with each of those outcomes. These are not the knowledge and skills. These are the understandings, that piece that sits in the middle. So in order for me to know what fit with N1, I still have to, there's those 3 bullets. I still have to come back in here and see what it was that I'm going to be doing in knowledge and skills specifically to unpack it. Do I do all of these in September? No. Do I do all of these in October, November, December? Probably. Probably you will have been already starting all of these, and you already are just revisiting based on the number system that they're working on. So you just keep going back. and back, back. And that's what gives the power, first of all, to the manipulative that you put in front of them, because now they've got a chance to really learn it, but you're just tooling it up. You know, at the beginning of the week, I was at 50 and I'm categorically sound in your mind at 80.
I just gotta go brush my teeth, okay?
And we just make sure that we're muted there, everybody. So on the side, I won't go through each one of these sheets, but I just took each one of these out again, just so that you could see the ones that we're working on for September, October, November, December, and just put a bit of a note on the side again, just how we might unpack it with money if you're looking for some additional ideas. If you started with base 10 blocks, that's fine. That doesn't mean you can't bring the money out. It doesn't mean that you can't continue to do that. But we really need the money understanding in order for them to do budgeting of any kind, or savings, and all of those pieces that are going to come into the financial literacy pieces. Okay, so I'm going to skip through those. And again, just a reminder, next year would be different. This is what they were doing in kindergarten. This is what they're doing in grade 1 for money. And so all the skip counting that's happening even in grade 2 will happen previous to this. So we have that bridging year this year for sure. But they will have some of that knowledge coming to you as they are moving forward. This is just a summary, and I'm adding to the summary right through to grade 6. So in kindergarten, everything that's highlighted in yellow is everything that they can meet as an outcome using money. There is nothing in their curriculum that I couldn't meet all of those with money. Would it only be money? No. Eventually, I'm going to bring out bears and counters and everything else. But just, again, I need to learn it before I can move forward with it. Grade 1, all of these could be covered in yellow with money. I'm not stopping to learn money. I am learning money while I'm knocking off outcomes at the same time. So even if I don't know the names of them, I could say lay out 5 of the same thing in front of me. Any 5 of the same coin. All I'm checking for is, do they even know that you have 5? And first of all, can they find 5 that look the same, right? And that depends on the grade that they're in. But grade 3s don't always necessarily know the names of all the coins either. We cannot make that assumption. In fact, I can tell you they don't know them. Grade 2s, all of these things. And remember, they're skip counting 20, 25, 50. So they didn't arrive at your door. We're going to have to review that and just the basics. And I can do that every time I lay out a coin. When we get to grade 3, all of the ones that are in yellow, I definitely can do with money, especially my multiplication facts without bringing the word math facts, times, tables forward. I'm going to get them to start thinking and doing it without their knowledge. We'll bring it up when we are ready for it, but I can use money for that. Anything that's in light green is where money will support the unit fraction work that we're going to do. And I'm going to ask you to maybe, or suggest, even hold off on that, just because I don't think everybody's ready to start unit fractions. And we want money to be the leader in that. And we don't even want to use the word fraction. We don't want to even talk about a numerator. We don't want to show them a 1 over anything. Just going to use money and let them understand that relationship first, and then we can start talking about any other unit fraction we want. So I've included in here a couple of slides or videos that you might want to use with the students, just to get them thinking too about money. The one at the very bottom is really neat. It's a short one, but it tells you how they make the current money that we have, and some pretty neat things that you'll find inside that. So again, if you've got some time, kids are quite engrossed in those. They really do like them. Okay, I'm gonna figure out why this is not moving out of my way here. There we go. Okay, so let me just get past this. And I'm gonna skip that one. Okay, so money, concept, manipulative, whole thing. And if they haven't done any identification, just pick something that's really easy. At the bottom here, you'll see a link for $3, I think $3.50. This is a teacher pay teacher piece. This is my own, but it took a ton of time to make this. And then I found one that's already done. It takes you everything from this to making decisions about which piggy bank has the most money in it and why would you choose it. Those are really good conversations to have with students in grade 3. We also have this money app that I've shown you before. Again, if you don't have it, you can go into the slide deck. It'll be in the folder. Just click it on and then you can just download it. But it gives you the authentic looking money. You can drag it out. You can create worksheets with it. So instead of doing stuff like this, where we just have daubers and black circles, if we replace it with money, just to put it in front of their heads, even when I say this, find me 6 of something, I would still go back and say, for those who can, let's skip count by 5s. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. What am I doing? I'm subitizing also. I see 5 here plus 1 is 6. Like all of those quick math things that we want them to do. I'm going to skip these because we've done some of these before and move to this. So here I see 5 coins. I should be able to subitize those. But if I'm going to get into place value, then I should understand when it means about converting. Why do I even bother converting? Well, for one, it makes it easier to carry around. So 5 pennies is the same as a nickel. But really what I want to focus on is, did I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or can I see that this is 5? So that when I get here, I see I have 5, 10. Or I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Or I have a group of 10. This is the kind of work I would do with money immediately. I would do it every time because they need to brush up on their skip counting. So I want them not to count individually, but I want them to tool from one to the other. 5, 10. 2 groups of 5 is 10. 5 plus 5 is 10. And then I can skip count by 2s. I can also say 2 groups of 2 is how many? 4. I want them to start to see it. What is 3 groups of 2? I see 3, 2. So that's 6. 3 and 3 is 6. 4 groups of 2. Where am I going? I'm actually building, they're thinking about times tables, but I'm not telling them that yet. This is 2 groups of 5. Some students will see 2 nickels. Some students will say, I don't see that. I just see 10. I see a dime. Whatever works for them. Okay, I have 5 times. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Some students say, no, I see 2 10s and a 5. Okay, fine. I also see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And when I go down, I'm going to have 1 left over. I have a conversation about odd even. I look at possible arrays. 2 by 2 is 4, 3 by 2. So they keep seeing the same things over, but now I can go 3 by 3, or I could go 2 by 3. We had students do this last year when they would get these, they just became so ingrained in them that they would do that automatically. Oh yeah, I see the 2 by 2, and they would just grab a marker, do the marker, do all the 2s first, and they would do their 3s, however they wanted to. We didn't care where they started. But in the end, those grade 3s, some of them were at 15 by 15, and not because we went there with them and not because we asked them to. They had just mastered the routine of being able to find different arrays and what they looked like, that when we gave them multiplication tables to work out with arrays and different combinations of arrays, they sailed beyond what we were looking for. So again, you're always leveraging this. This is as best you can as far as meeting some of the outcomes that are coming down the road even. And again, I want them to understand the equivalency. I've got 5 here. I could have 2 dimes and a nickel, or I could just have a quarter. And then I get 100. This is your maximum that you're kind of going towards. So I see rows of 10, so I can skip count by 10, or 2 times 5 in here. So 5 and 5 is 10, 10, 20, 30, 40. So I'm revisiting that. I can revisit groups of 2s. I have lots of arrays in here. And interestingly enough, they thought that was really cool. Like, how many different colors could I put on here? Whatever. That seemed to enthrall them in the sense that money was inviting them in. But this is a conversation that we would want to keep going. And we're going to use this kind of picture that you see right now. This will be the lead to our unit fractions. This is our starting point for unit fractions, but we're not going to use the word fraction because I want them to understand what relationships are first. And then when we throw the word fraction out, that they might have heard already at home, and people say, oh, you're doing fractions. I sucked at those. They're terrible. They're hard, whatever. And then we lose half the kids. And it's not because they didn't understand it. It's just because they get this mindset. So we're going to use this, but use this to build math skills. Use this to build arrays. Use this to different versions of money. What do I see here? I put some games in here that if you just want to play for close to 100, make it 100 cents. You can put them in here. If you've got some students that are beyond 100, you can change every dot to make it a 10 so that they're increasing, or make it 100, whatever number you want. It doesn't have to be 100. And then same thing here. I've given you another one. This is a famous one that we used with the kids, the area ones. Again, we didn't tell them it was multiplication tables, but that's really what they're doing. Again, it's another visual. What does a 2x2 look like? What does a 4x4 look like? And they love this. This is an easy game. Any level can play. And if I can't subitize yet, I can still count the dots on the dice. Everybody can play. Everybody has an entry level. This is also in your file folder. You can change this number to anything you want. And this is a good way for you to find out if they know money and they can regroup things, if they can convert. Show me whatever, 11 cents, I'm going to bump this up. Let's say you show me, 55 cents. Show me 46 cents, whatever. And they have 4 different blocks to show it in. So they have to show it 4 different ways. So different combinations of money to end up with the same total that you have up here. The only condition I put on, this is me personally, is I say one of those has to be efficient. And by efficient, it means you have to use the least number of coins possible for that total. If they wanted to, if I had 44 up here and they counted up 44 pennies, I'd say, good for you. That's great. If that makes more sense for them to start, fine. But one of these has to be the most efficient that they can come up with. I've also included in here, which right now I would say maybe just have a look at it, but you don't need to worry about it because we'll revisit this in November. So here's an example of the 6 elements of place value that we want to make sure students are able to do for any value. So this is just a sample, but I also included a blank sheet. Before and after, if you're working on bigger numbers, if I'm working on smaller numbers, you give me 55. What's 10 before that? What's 10 after it? What's 12 before that? What's 12 after it? So if I'm supposed to be able to add and subtract 2-digit numbers, that's a good one. If you're already got me working at 200s, what's 40 before it? What's 40 after it? Right? I can give them anything and differentiate based on where the students are at. Put the money on a number line. Just make these cent signs and just put the dimes on there, put the nickels on there, but don't you do it. Don't tell them, let them do it to show you that they're getting the notion that 10 dimes will give me 100, right? That's the whole point of being able to do that. So just having it there, this will help us with the unit fractions that we're going to talk about. Again, if you're looking for ideas about how much to maybe put in a Ziploc bag, this would be enough for 2 students to work with. They're going to run out, regardless of what you give them, they're going to run out. So I usually have what we call the banker at the back, and then they can come and get more money from us, and that's fine. I also have a number line, and I made a number line that is marked off in meters. The first meter is marked off every centimeter and marked individually by every 10. But you'll notice the top of it, I put 100 cents, 90 cents, so that it starts with money at the same time. This is on cash register tape. And I continued on for the other 9 meters. All I did was I marked the end of the meter, and then I would write 200, 300, 400, because part of your curriculum is also benchmarking. So do they understand what halfway benchmark would be for 200 to 300? And if some point in time, I give you a number, every one of you gets a number depending on what I know you can handle. And I'm going to push you a little bit beyond what you have. I give you an 88 when you're only working to 80. I'm going to give somebody who's working on 200, maybe 256. Give them a clothes peg, roll this thing down the hallway and say, go and clip your number onto that number line. I want to see where they put it. If you give me 256 and I put it really close to 300, then I don't understand benchmarking. I don't really understand where halfway would be, right? So we have that conversation. But again, you can differentiate that for any student in your class. And then when we get to 1,000, I actually changed everything that was in the hundreds. I then marked it 1,000. I just really felt kids needed to see it increment by 1,000 to get to 10,000, because we're kind of missing that number. And then when we get the 10, where we have the 1,000 marks, I also put 10,000. So we increment by 10,000. So again, we get to 100,000, just so that they've got kids who are high flyers and you want to investigate numbers, then investigate. I'm going to leave that one for now. Remember, you have these tools on the website, the Moving Forward website that you all have logins to. These are found underneath the kits, and you have a whole bunch of them. I'd start basic, start with the penny, the nickel, the dime. And then once I mastered that, do the, I don't know, nickel, dime, quarters, or nickel, dimes, dollars, like whatever. They're all listed by the name. Whatever's in the name is what you will see on here. So it gives them a chance to do the converting that we would normally do with base 10 blocks. So when we start doing that again, it will make sense. Remember that $1,000 is the same as 100,000 pennies. Just something to think about for later down the road. This sheet is for you again as a resource more than anything. You already have most of these in your previous slide decks that I gave you and in your other folder. But if you're new, and we do have a number of new people, these would be bingo cards. If you've never done anything with money, you could just play bingo with them, right? There's 25 unique cards there. It's not like you have to create anything. Everything's done for you. Alberta Education Planning documents, the planning guides were done for the old curriculum, but they work very well for the new curriculum. You just have to tool them down based on the grade, but they offer you a pre-assessment activities to bring students back up to speed, and then a post-assessment. So there's lots of different things included in here that I'm not going to just load into the folder. I'll just leave it to you to decide if that's something you want to use. So I just put a note here that we will revisit place value in a really big way and just start the idea of unit fractions when we meet again at the end of November. And that will take us to December, January, February. So that will get us sort of over that piece. And that'll give us a chance to get some things done. So this will be in your folder. I'm just going to go to, just going to check our chat box here. Yes, so if you missed the first week, not to worry. I'm going to check two places for you right now. The first one is, well, let's just do this one. This is the site that most of you are going to want, and that would be the Moving Forward site. So let me just see here, grab it from my desktop here. So this is the Moving Forward curriculum website. Let me throw that into the chat box. And let's give that to everyone. So if you already have been there and you feel comfortable with it, don't feel that you have to hang around with us right now, but I would like to make sure everybody knows where to find things. So if you can grab that link in the chat box. When you signed up for this series, you got two emails. The first one was a confirmation that you registered, and then you got a second one which told you, welcome to the Moving Forward website. And that gave you a login and a password. If you didn't see that, or it slipped by you, you can always go into your search box for your emails and just type in all one word, Moving Forward Curriculum. And it'll probably just bring up that email for you. But let me just show you in the meantime so that, and if you have any troubles, just send me an email and I'll get you in for sure. But here's the place that you want to go. So we have school divisions, and these are all locked down for those school divisions. And then we have cohort groups, and that's what we belong to. We're the cohort group for math. So you're going to come here. You will need your login and your password to get in, but I just want to show you where you're going to find things. So in here, there's a whole bunch of file folders. You're going to go to the planning for the new math grade 3 and click it on. And here's our first session that we did in August. And so when you click that on, for those who are brand new and maybe those who haven't been there yet, you always get a copy of the recording. So here's the recording that we did. That means you can go back and listen to kind of how we unpacked it for the beginning of the year. And then if there were any handouts that I had for you that would help you to get started, not necessarily always referenced in the video, I will put them below the recording. That's where our tech will always put them. And these, you can download any of these, all of them, none of them. Like you don't have to use any of them if you don't want to, but things like the games, the money things, in this case, the subitizing cards that we referenced before, those are all found here. And so you can come in and out and as many times as you want. Like you don't have to download all of these right now because it's not necessary. You can come in. They're not going to close this off at the end of the year. This is up for good. Like this will be staying permanent. So that's where you're going to find your folder. When I talk about your folder, that's where it will be. So generally it'll be tomorrow morning now because I have another couple of sessions to do tonight. So I won't be home till 11. So clearly tech isn't going to be waiting for me. I will put these in and tech will post another folder and it'll be with today's date. So October 18th. And then that's how we usually put them so that you can see that was the date that we met. Okay, that's where I'm going to find it. If I have stuff posted in your August folder, I won't repost the same resources into the October folder. I always try to keep it new things so that you're just getting additional pieces onto it. And I'll just keep doing that throughout the year. Here are some places that nobody needs a login for. So even if you don't have it right now, you can go there. If you did some testing on your students and you found that some of them were behind and you need to do some interventions with them now, when the money was put forward last year for interventions, we were asked to put together interventions that teachers could use. So there's a teacher side and there's an EA side. So if an EA helping you, it's already scripted for them. So you'll find those there. You don't have to create them or go find stuff. It's all there. The interactive documents would be your year at a glance. When people were asking us, is Alberta Education going to give us illustrative examples? We asked them, they said, no, we won't. So we took your year at a glance. These ones you can't download, but you can go in here at any time. Anybody can. Here's your grade 3 year at a glance. And anything that's highlighted in green, there's your quantity sitting right there. If I click it on and open it, it will give you an example that maybe you can share with the kids or use for explanation. Sometimes it's a lesson, sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's all of the above. So it's just our sort of fast way to get you some things that might be helpful to you for the absence of an illustrative example. And your interactive, your numbered outcomes are also there. So your numbered outcomes document has also got those interactive bullets. If you need something for parents in math and LA, we created sort of a short form 1-page, 2-page that just summarizes what's happening in math, so that if you need something to send home at an interview or you just want to use bits and pieces of it or not, it's up to you. Those are just available if you want them. Some teachers were asking for math kits. They wanted to create a small kit that they could put in their desk, and it would have sort of all the pieces that we might need for grade 3 in it. So when you click these on, you will find that they're all listed for you. There's a video to tell you what's in it. There's the slide deck if you just want to focus on one thing. And then anything that gets photocopied for that kit is listed below it. And again, if you don't even want to build a kit, don't worry about it. Then if there's just something you saw that, oh yeah, I'd really like them to have that, well then just go get that. You don't have to build a kit. This is all those templates that I showed you when you're just teaching them money. Here's the penny, nickel, dime. Here's the penny, nickel, dime. Oh, that's a different version. Penny, nickel, dime, quarter. So this is how it gets tooled up. There's a Word version and a PDF version. So depending on what version you like, and if you want to do some editing, then you can just download whatever you need. I found that we just printed them on cardstock and laminated them so that we would just have them like for good. We didn't have to keep bringing them to class and photocopying them. It was just a one-shot type of thing. So that will get you going as far as all of the places that you will find your resources. At any time, you are more than welcome to connect with me. You do not have to worry about whether or not you're, I think it should have been on my site or I missed it or whatever. Don't worry about it. If you're new, here is my email. I'll just put that back up again. And my phone number. Feel free to phone me or text me. I was on with grade 3 last night, and that's great. I'm glad to be able to work with people that are just trying to tool things through. So feel free to contact me. If you're working at a different place, you started at a different place and you were looking for some assistance, or you just want some more resources and maybe you don't have anything, just send me an email, just maybe not 5 minutes before you want to teach it. But if you send me an email and tell me what you're looking for, if I have something, I will gladly send it to you. And if I send it to one of you, I'll just put it in the folder so that all of you will have access to it. Maybe you could all use it at some point later on. Okay. All right, so let me just see. All right, well, I'm glad it was useful because that's my point, is I want it to be something that's helpful to you. But remember too, that this is not, nothing's written in stone and we're all just going to make our way through. You do not have to panic about achieving everything. Go slow now to speed it up later. After Christmas, we can look and reevaluate how quickly we want to go through things, but there is no rush at this point in time. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry I've gone over by 11 minutes and I knew it was going to be a long one, but we will try to get things going. So for sure, I will try and get the folder up by tomorrow noon. And I will have all those things ready for you. So thanks again for joining me, and we will see you towards the end of November.